Bathroom Breaks and Bedtime Tales presents To Alter or Abolish by Sevastian Winters. Step 1. Laying Plans. She's halfway through Nevada when the DHS drone buzzes her rig. Low, deliberate, black as a fucking wasp. The kind that doesn't sting until you forget it's there. June doesn't flinch. She just kills the cruise control, eases into the slow lane, and reaches down like she's scratching her knee. Her fingers find the kill switch tucked behind the vent panel. Custom wired, unregistered, silent. One tap and the jammer kicks in. The drone hiccups midair, drifts, loses its lock on her. Good. Let it wonder. She's already passed 4 checkpoints today, all of them running facial scans behind random searches. She knows the pattern. Every trucker worth her ink knows the pattern. The new America isn't built on freedom. It's built on freight. Freight keeps moving, or the cities burn. But she's not moving freight anymore. Not really. The manifest says frozen poultry. The manifest lies. Inside that reefer trailer are 3 crates of solar inverter chips, 3 encrypted hard drives, and 1 woman from Coos Bay who hasn't spoken since Elko. This isn't a route, it's a test. June adjusts the mirror and catches her own eyes, gray, cracked at the corners, steady. The kind of steady you earn by watching people bleed for the wrong cause one too many times. She drives in silence another 10 miles before taking the exit for a closed way station. The chain-link gate is padlocked, the waylight's dead. She rolls over the scale anyway, just out of habit. Then she backs the rig behind the abandoned maintenance shed and kills the engine. No one follows. She climbs down, boots crunching gravel, sweat already pooling in her armpits. She walks around back, pops the trailer, and leans in. The woman is still crouched in the far corner, wrapped in a wool blanket, eyes wide but empty. "You're safe," June says. "Feds won't scan this place, not tonight." The woman doesn't answer. June sets a jug of water down, then a bag of dried fruit. She doesn't press. Trauma doesn't like to be interviewed. She just closes the door again and lights a cigarette with hands that don't shake anymore. Then she reaches into her jacket, pulls out the ragged paperback, and opens it to a bookmarked page. Margin notes scribbled in truck stop pens. Coffee stains across the spine. All warfare is based on deception. She flips the page and mutters it out loud like a prayer. The skillful leader subdues the enemy without fighting. From her boot, she pulls the burner, taps out the message. Not yet sent. Not yet. M. Reyes, Port of Oakland, Systems Control. Still have access? June looks up. The drone is gone. The sun's going down red and mean. In the distance, a train screams past on a line she used to trust. She lights another cigarette. Tomorrow, she crosses into California, and the war begins. Not with gunfire, not yet, but with a woman they didn't see coming. And a single message no one can stop. Step 2. Waging war. The first confirmation comes just after midnight. Yes, full systems access. Manifest override still possible. Port comms quiet. Standing by. M. Reyes. June doesn't smile. She doesn't celebrate. She just stubs out her cigarette, checks the signal strength on her burner, and deletes the text from the screen. Not from memory. Nothing ever leaves memory. She's parked at a truck stop outside Red Bluff, California. The kind of place where the diesel air is thick enough to chew, and the bathrooms are never empty. Across the lot, a convoy of tankers from Colorado idles loud and hot, their drivers passed out or passed through. She's the only one not sleeping. This is the shift, the moment when a thought becomes an action, when maybe becomes now. She takes a knee in the gravel beside the truck and pulls the side panel loose with a flathead screwdriver. Inside, tucked between the fender and the battery casing, is a signal repeater rigged to the CB wiring. It's her own design, passive most of the time, but now, it's ready. She flips the switch. One click. No sound. No light. But across Northern California, 4 other trucks get the signal. One of them is in Eureka, hauling empty pallets and a man with a map tattooed across his ribs. One is in Fresno, parked behind an almond processing plant with a cooler full of fake USDA seals. One is already on I-5, headed south with a stolen telecom relay buried beneath 20 tons of topsoil. And the last one? The last one is crossing into Oregon with June's oldest friend behind the wheel. Waging war is like setting fire to a field, her old drill sergeant once told her. You better know which way the wind's blowing before you light the match. June knows. She's been reading the wind since her son came home in pieces. From her pocket, she pulls out a folded printout. Not digital. Paper. Not traceable. Manifest override. Port of Oakland, Dock C, 040 hours. Container reroute orders. Approved. Certified. Falsified by someone who still believes the system is worth saving, even if it has to be dismantled first. The rerouted containers will go north, not inland. Not to the corporate rail yards or defense contractors. To tribal land near Klamath, where jurisdiction gets hazy and feds don't like to trespass. Inside those containers, water purification gear, solar grids, medical surplus stolen from FEMA reserves after the last flood in Stockton, infrastructure, nation-building shit. Not bombs, not rifles, not yet. If she plays this right, they won't need them. She checks her watch. 3:26 a.m. She keys the mic on her CB, but doesn't speak. Instead, she lets it sit open on channel 19. It's a signal. Not to talk, but to listen. In Fresno, someone clicks once. In Eureka, twice. Oregon, 3. The I-5 truck just holds the mic down and lets a static hum fill the void for 7 long seconds before releasing. 4 clicks. They're in. The first wave is moving. This isn't about making headlines. This isn't about going viral. That's how the right plays it. Outrage, spectacle, noise. June doesn't need noise. She needs silence. She needs motion. She needs the machine to think it's still operating right up until the moment it seizes. The American empire has never known a revolution like this one, because this one's already inside the supply chain. She climbs back into the cab, shifts into gear, and pulls onto the dark, empty highway. By the time the sun rises, the first trucks will be gone. By the time they're noticed, the routes will be rerouted again. By the time the feds start asking questions, the Republic of Pacifica will have power, water, communications, and people ready to govern themselves. War costs. But this one doesn't start with death. She hits 55 miles per hour, steady. It starts with the things that keep the rest of them alive. Step 3. Attack by stratagem. They call it a malfunction. The news breaks at 7:12 a.m. PST. The Port of Oakland's automated routing system suffered a temporary logistical anomaly, resulting in dozens of containers being offloaded to the wrong freight yards. Port Authority blames it on a systems patch that never went through. A hiccup, a blip, nothing to see here. But June knows better. She's in a diner near Reading when it hits the news. Paper menus, low ceilings, a waitress who keeps calling everyone sweetheart whether they deserve it or not. The TV mounted in the corner buzzes with half-volume local coverage, no images of the containers, no details on their contents, just speculation and shrugs. Perfect! Because while the anchors chuckle about robots with hangovers, half of what was supposed to feed the military-industrial machine is already being unloaded on sovereign tribal land, where the federal government needs a court order just to blink. June watches a man across the room, early 30s, sharp haircut, too well-dressed for a truck stop. He hasn't touched his food. He's listening. He's watching the same screen. When the waitress drops his check, he slips a phone out from under the table and thumbs something fast, tight, practiced. Fed. June doesn't stare. She just picks up her coffee, takes a long, casual sip, and walks to the bathroom. Inside the stall, she pulls her burner from her boot, taps out a message with practiced calm. Port op confirmed. Media narrative controlled. Possible surveillance at location. She sends it, wipes the screen, and cracks the phone in half over her knee. SIM in the toilet. Casing in the trash. She's done this before, too many times to call it paranoia. On her way out, she gives the man one look. Not hostile, just long enough for him to feel it. If he's watching, he'll follow. If he follows, he'll find nothing. Her rig isn't parked out front. She left it 3 blocks away, behind a shuttered motel, masked under a stolen delivery tag that says fresh fish. She walks the side street like she owns it, past dumpsters and busted vending machines. By the time he checks the parking lot, she's gone. All warfare is based on deception. That's what Sun Tzu said. But he never had to deal with facial recognition software and satellites that can read a license plate from the fucking mesosphere. June doesn't fight that kind of enemy head-on. She makes them look in the wrong direction again and again until they burn their own eyes out. By noon, 6 more containers have vanished from state-monitored routes. Another 12 are flagged for inspection, but only after they've passed into tribal or community-controlled zones that haven't cooperated with federal enforcement since Standing Rock. The government tries to lean on Port Authority. Port Authority points fingers at a Chinese software subcontractor. The subcontractor denies everything. And while they're arguing, June's network moves. 2,000 solar panels, 4 generators, 8 tons of shelf-stable medical supplies with barcodes already wiped, all redirected without a shot fired, without a single headline worth chasing. Just a glitch, just a blip, just a country so sure of its invincibility that it doesn't know it's already bleeding out. That night, she meets the I-5 crew at a rest stop outside Ashland, Oregon. No campfire, no ceremony. Just 4 trucks parked in a crescent, engines off, men and women drinking black coffee out of thermoses and watching the tree line. "You good?" her second, Reggie, asks. June nods. "Then what's next?" She lights a match, just one, and lets it burn to her fingers. "They think we're moving freight," she says. So let's give them a real shipment. What kind? Truth. Step 4. Tactical dispositions. June doesn't believe in speeches. She believes in maps. The one on the hood of Reggie's truck is hand-drawn, coated in red grease pencil and dotted with coffee rings. Each mark is a location she's already touched: person, pipeline, port, processor. Every one of them thought they were alone. Now they know better. She traces the line from Oakland to Klamath. That's power, she says. Then from Seattle to Prince Rupert. That's supply. Then the faint crescent that stretches from Fresno irrigation tunnels through the Salton Sea Basin into Baja. That's water. 3 lines. That's all it takes to keep a population alive or collapse one. And this? She points to a blank patch inland from Eugene. That's the switchboard. He laughs once, dry and low. Thought you said we weren't going full prepper compound. We're not, she says. We're going logistics node with high-speed redundancy and low visibility. Words matter. They spend the next 48 hours in motion. June doesn't sleep. She rotates drivers, flips license plates, cycles burner phones every 12 hours. She changes outfits at way stations, smiles at CHP troopers. She's invisible again, the way only a working-class woman can be, present but dismissed. Meanwhile, the placements happen. Solar farms erected on tribal land. Water purification systems distributed to rural towns already forgotten by Sacramento. Private cellular repeaters set up in the high valleys, masked as weather sensors. Public library server stacks quietly swapped out with upgraded hardware capable of decentralized hosting. No one calls it government. That's the trick. It's community preparedness. It's disaster readiness. It's environmental stewardship. Until one day, the government asks for cooperation, and these towns say no, because now they don't need permission. In Prince George, a retired Canadian transport officer signs off on the activation of 2 rail lines that no longer technically serve any federal routes. In Sitka, a rogue harbor master allocates dock space for incoming humanitarian storage containers. In San Diego, a black nurse organizes a cooperative of ER techs and medics who no longer answer to their hospital boards, only to each other. Across 7 states and 2 countries, June's people aren't fighting, they're positioning. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, she once read in that damn book. But the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. The enemy is still laughing at port logistics, still watching TikToks of exploding pallets, still pretending this is a fluke. Let them. On the 3rd day, June pulls her rig into a dead strip mall off Highway 99, kills the engine, and climbs into the back where a fireproof case waits. She opens it, removes an old paper map of the continental West, and marks one final spot. A junction of fiber optic lines outside Sacramento, technically owned by a private telecom firm. Technically. In reality, it routes half the internet traffic between Washington and California. She draws a red X. Then she closes the case, locks it again, and makes the call. Not a burner, not encrypted, a regular phone. Let them trace it. Move the switch, she says. The voice on the other end just says, done. Outside, the wind changes. No sirens, no screams. Just a quiet, permanent shift in who controls the infrastructure beneath the myth. She puts the rig in gear and drives. Step 5. Use of energy. The call hits a server farm in Fremont at 3:04 a.m., bounced from a shell company in Guadalajara. 5 seconds later, every data packet in Northern California bound for federal routing servers is delayed by exactly 12 milliseconds. Not blocked, not traced, just slowed. 12 milliseconds is nothing unless you're trying to track movement. Unless you're scanning for license plates, surveilling heat signatures, monitoring financial transactions, or syncing law enforcement timestamps across jurisdictions. In 12 milliseconds, a rig disappears from satellite watch. In 12 milliseconds, a port scan reports the wrong coordinates. In 12 milliseconds, the empire blinks. And that's all June needs. She's in a warehouse near Dunsmuir, surrounded by pallets of civilian-grade supplies that haven't been civilian-controlled in decades. Portable oxygen units, burn dressings, IV bags, antibiotics, labeled in Spanish and Chinook and Tagalog. Nothing with logos, everything with purpose. Reggie walks in holding a report. Seattle PD pulled back their rapid response teams. Local city councils claiming overtime shortages. But it's us. Which piece? The blackout loop. Traffic cams. Dispatch delays. They're flying blind. Good. Keep them spinning. She walks to the back room. It's quieter here. No forklifts, no chatter. Just her and a dry erase board with 5 overlapping zones drawn across the spine of the western seaboard. Red, blue, green, yellow, and one left unmarked. Power, water, comms, food, emotion. That last one's the hardest to control. It's the one thing the government always thought it owned. Fear, rage, patriotism, resentment. But that's shifting now. People are talking differently. They're not asking why everything's broken. They're asking who's keeping it running. And the answer isn't Washington. It's names no one's seen before. Navajo water chiefs, Cascadian rail engineers, a First Nations broadband co-op out of Haida Gwaii that just tripled its coverage overnight. Power, not as in electricity, but as in control, is moving. And June knows exactly when to push. Stage 2 is ready, Reggie says. What's the pressure? Average citizen in the target zone hits 20 hours of blackout over 5 days. Food shelves empty in 2. Internet crashes in 6 cities, but only the cities that haven't already joined the fold. Good, she says. Then we open the tap. You sure? She looks out the window. The sun's rising behind the mountains, setting the clouds on fire. In the distance, someone's already unfurling a flag that doesn't match any nation-state. No stars, no stripes, just a single white band across blue, splitting land from sky. I'm sure, she says. And across 3 time zones, entire infrastructures reboot, but this time under new command. Local, visible, accountable. Not because of weapons, because of momentum. Because June understands what most generals never do. Energy may be likened to the bending of a crossbow, decision to the releasing of the trigger. And she just pulled it. Step 6. Weak points and strong. The flood doesn't start in the cities. That's what the federal agencies expect. Mass protest, occupation, screaming in the streets. Easy to film, easy to suppress. But June's war doesn't follow their choreography. It begins in the places they forgot about. a hydroelectric station in the Cascades, a food distribution center outside Modesto, a fiber relay node buried under an old community college in Kelowna. Each one left minimally staffed, underfunded, and critically unwatched. And each one now answers to her, not with bullets, with access codes. The people running those sites are engineers, shift supervisors, janitors, not radicals, just tired. Tired of watching resources flow upward while their own kids drink from plastic bottles filled at emergency taps. Tired of watching outages blamed on sabotage when it's always been neglect. June doesn't convince them with ideology. She convinces them with backup batteries, with medicine, with clean water, and a map of how long the system survives without their cooperation. They make the decision for her. The first real test hits in Fresno. A Homeland Security convoy rolls through a neighborhood where one of June's nodes is live power grid rerouted, comms looped through a local switch, air quality readings altered to cover evac drills. It's a fragile point, vulnerable. June watches through a remote feed, heart tight. But the convoy doesn't stop, doesn't search. They're reacting to an encrypted dispatch, false intel planted by one of her people inside the Department of Agriculture. A spreadsheet showing a pathogen leak 3 counties over. It looks real because it is real, only 2 years old and already buried in federal archives. The convoy reroutes. They drive in the wrong direction for 6 hours. That's not luck, that's design. The skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. June doesn't hide her strongholds. She hides her weaknesses inside her strengths, and vice versa. Every site that looks exposed is doubled with silent fallback. Every location that looks fortified is a shell. The feds start hitting what they think are command centers. What they find are community centers filled with donated diapers and oxygen tanks. They arrest volunteers, send drones to monitor solar farms, harass indigenous medics on sovereign land. Each move they make exposes them. Each overreach radicalizes a dozen more. Each abuse of power feeds her ranks. By the time they notice the pattern, it's too late. The urban hubs begin to turn. Seattle passes a soft autonomy bill. Vancouver announces a cross-border environmental compact with Oregon. San Diego County halts all cooperation with federal enforcement not backed by court order. Not rebellion, just non-compliance. Just enough legal grounding to buy time. Just enough public support to hold the line. Just enough strength to keep them guessing which way the hammer will fall. And by that point, the hammer isn't hers anymore. It's everyone's. Step 7. Maneuvering. The first real blow lands in Portland. Federal agents raid a warehouse June's crew had just vacated, 6 hours too late. They find 20 pallets of expired insulin, 2 disconnected servers, and a handwritten quote on the wall. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. It makes the morning news, not the raid, just the quote. Twitter eats it alive. Conspiracy theorists claim it's a foreign plot. Pundits say it's leftist theater. Some libertarian senator calls it domestic terrorism. But the people on the ground, they start quoting it back. It shows up on garage doors, in yard signs, spray painted onto overpasses. Subdue without fighting becomes a kind of mantra, misunderstood by some, mocked by others, but carried like a low chant through towns where trash hasn't been picked up in weeks and wages have been frozen for months. June's not interested in the noise. She's dealing with something worse: momentum friction. Reggie's crew in Southern Oregon is late on a delivery. A sympathizer in LA goes dark. Two of her internal dispatchers argue over protocol. One wants to release a list of defectors. The other says no names, no blood. And in Seattle, a city councilwoman who'd quietly supported the movement holds a press conference announcing full cooperation with the Department of Justice. They got to her. Or scared her, or offered her something she couldn't refuse. Doesn't matter. It's a crack, and cracks spread. June calls an emergency session over encrypted comms, 8 regional leads, 1 from each zone. It's the first time she's heard them all this tense. Is this a soft movement or a hard one? Someone snaps. People are treating this like a fucking weather app. No one knows if we're building a nation or running a PR campaign. June doesn't flinch. We're not building a nation, she says. We're proving one exists. What about enforcement? What about it? If someone breaks ranks, no prisons, no guns, just disconnection. Anyone sabotages this, they lose access. Power, water, medical, that's it. Silence. Then Reggie, that'll do. After the call, she sits alone in the sleeper cab, watching the rain roll off the windshield. Her hands hurt. She hasn't eaten all day. She left a woman behind in Redding who wanted more from her than logistics. She can't afford more than that. He who wishes to fight must first count the cost. She's counted it. And here's the truth. This thing isn't hers anymore. It's outgrown her. Spread faster than she ever planned. She maneuvered them into power. Now she has to maneuver them into unity. Which means backing off. Which means handing off. She digs through her pack, pulls out a sealed envelope, and slides it into a courier drop set up weeks ago under the name May Arden. Inside is the list of 6 people who can lead if she vanishes. Not if, when. She closes the drop and walks back to her rig. The moment her hand hits the door, her burner vibrates. A single message from Baja. Governor wants to talk. And that's how June learns the movement is no longer underground. It's at the negotiation table. Step 8. Variation in tactics. The governor of Baja California is younger than June expected. Mid-40s, sharp suit, no tie, eyes that don't blink enough. They meet in a shaded courtyard behind a seafood cooperative near Ensenada, the kind of place with plastic chairs and salt in the air. "I'm not here as an official," he says in Spanish. "Not yet." "Then why are you here?" she asks. "Because I'm watching the weather, and I think there's a storm coming. I'd rather sail with it than sink under it." He slides a folder across the table. June doesn't touch it, not yet. Power grid alignments, freshwater routes, import flows. If Pacifica forms, we'd like to be part of it. June doesn't blink either. "That's a pretty big shift for a border state." "I'm not interested in borders," he says. "I'm interested in survival. Your network has reach. Ours has local support. Together, we have resilience." She picks up the folder. It's real. Numbers check out. Names she recognizes. Locations she's already marked. "Why now?" she asks. "Because you're not the only one who lost someone," he says quietly. "And because I know what happens when a nation waits too long to choose a side." They shake hands once. No photos, no signatures. Just pressure and intent. On the drive north, June replays the meeting in her head. The man wasn't lying, but he wasn't fully honest either. He's hedging. Everyone's hedging now. Cities, counties, even countries. Because they all feel it. The collapse isn't theoretical anymore. The old empire is crapping, and nobody wants to be under it when it falls. Back in Pacifica, the mood is shifting. Some want to push faster. Others want to freeze in place until the next midterm. Unity fractures under pressure, ideals clashing with tactics, caution with urgency. Then the hospital breach hits. In Eugene, a group of armed men, not feds, not hers, storm a med center that's been quietly operating outside federal networks. They demand supplies. The volunteers refuse. There's a fight. 2 people die. The first blood. June hears about it from a nurse she trained 3 months ago. The woman's voice shakes on the phone. "They filmed it," she says. "They're going to use it. Say we're dangerous." They already say that. This time, they're right. June hangs up and drives for hours. No music, no comms. Just the sound of rubber on road and her own thoughts eating themselves alive. She keeps thinking about the woman in the trailer back in Nevada, the one who wouldn't speak. She thinks about what happens if this thing turns violent, if the blood keeps coming. She stops in a valley outside Grants Pass, pulls the truck onto a dirt turnout, and climbs up onto the roof. The air is cold. Her knees hurt. The stars feel like teeth. In war, the way is to avoid what is strong and strike at what is weak. She's been following one path: quiet infiltration, strategic positioning, pressure over spectacle. But that won't hold now, not alone. She needs new moves, not just defense, not just reshuffling. She needs to give people something real to fight for, not just against. So she rewrites the plan. Not all of it, just the shape of the next few steps. More visibility, more leaks, more truth. The next phase won't be subtle. It'll be loud, surgical, impossible to ignore. She gets back in the truck and sends 3 words to her inner circle. Open the archives. Let them see what's been done in their name. Let them choose what kind of country they want next, even if it costs her everything. Step 9. The Army on the March. They come in waves. Not in uniform, not with rifles, no marching boots or columns. June's army wears mechanic coveralls, hospital scrubs, hijabs, carpal tunnel braces, high-vis vests. They drive beat-up sedans and city buses, walk with canes and baby carriers, speak 12 languages across 4 borders, and none of them ask permission. They're not taking power, they're withdrawing consent. The first wave hit Sacramento. 22 municipal employees walk off the job together. Dispatchers, IT techs, and traffic signal supervisors. Not union action, not protest, realignment. They don't just quit. They shift into Pacifica-aligned cooperatives that had been shadow-mapped for months. Offices are reopened in new buildings. Emails rerouted. Services duplicated. No slogans, no demands. The lights stay on, but the chain of command no longer ends in D.C. June watches from a repurposed grain silo outside Eugene, surrounded by 6 screens streaming network nodes, dispatch chatter, and live drone feeds from sympathetic civilian pilots. She doesn't feel like a general. She feels like a nerve ending. Seattle holds a referendum. San Francisco freezes federal property tax collection. British Columbia's provincial leadership suspends cooperation with Ottawa on intelligence sharing pending review of domestic sovereignty concerns. The language is always careful, legalistic, bloodless, but the streets are boiling with meaning. A grocery distribution center in San Diego rebrands overnight with no corporate logos. Its shelves are stocked, its doors stay open. Security is handled by local volunteers trained in de-escalation, backed by nothing but a portable database of incident reports and a shared agreement. No guns. Not here. A retired Marine Corps colonel named Henley defects in Tacoma. Not to fight, but to advise. Quietly. Technically. He brings with him satellite routing guides, evacuation maps, and 24 names of junior officers who'd already stopped obeying certain orders. The clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy and does not require too much from individuals. June's not directing every move. She couldn't if she tried. What she's seeing now isn't a rebellion, it's migration. Not of people moving from one border to another, but of allegiance, of will, of structure. The architecture of a nation shifting underneath its skin, unseen, until the scaffolding becomes more real than the facade. And with it comes risk. 3 major cities still refuse to participate. A 4th, Phoenix, declares a state of emergency and begins preemptive raids on known sympathizers. A volunteer medic is beaten and arrested in front of her children. The footage goes viral. Some voices scream for vengeance, but June stops it, personally. She flies into Oakland, secretly, meets with the core leads and shows them something no one else has seen, the playbook, a 22-page document leaked months ago from a Department of Energy contractor. It outlines continuity of control scenarios in the event of non-violent regional rebellion. One line underlined twice. Catalyze violence. Reclaim narrative. They want us to shoot, June tells the room. They want martyrs. If we bleed, they get their mandate. If we hold the line, we get history. Reggie asks, how long can we hold it? She doesn't know. She won't say. But outside, the people keep coming. Not to kill, not to burn, to replace. An army of plumbers, coders, teachers, farmers, midwives, dispatchers, drivers, marching forward, not on a battlefield, but into a new version of the world. One junction box, ballot line, and wireless router at a time. Step 10. Terrain. The ambush doesn't come on a highway or in a city. It comes on a hill of volcanic soil east of Mount Shasta, where 3 counties blur and jurisdiction turns to fog. The feds move at night. 4 SUVs blacked out. No plates, no sirens, no warrant, just force. They target a microgrid relay hub. Small, ugly, important. It's legal, it's public, it's helping people. And it's in the way, but June is already there. She's not supposed to be. She was on her way north, prepping for a summit with indigenous leaders in British Columbia. But something felt off. A ping from a downed camera feed. A comms hiccup that didn't look accidental. So she came, alone. She's in the admin shed when the headlights flood the trees. No announcement, no time. She kills the interior lights, keys the mic on the desk radio. We're live, eyes on, no escalation unless they breach. Static. Then Reggie's voice. 4 minutes out, do not engage. She doesn't plan to. But the terrain gives her something the feds don't expect: advantage. The road is narrow, barely graded. The approach forces the SUVs single file. No flanking, no retreat. The site is surrounded by natural basalt ridges, ugly, jagged, ancient. They scatter radar. They break signal. There are only 2 ways up. One is blocked by a logging vehicle someone accidentally parked this morning and conveniently forgot to move. And the second? That's the one June is watching now, from behind the windowless wall of the control shack, hand resting on the manual override for the EMP cage they built out of copper mesh and salvaged electronics. It's not enough to destroy anything, just enough to interrupt. The SUVs slow, stop. One man exits. No badge, no patch. Just a helmet and a suppressed sidearm. They're not here to inspect. They're here to disappear someone. June breathes in, slow, controlled, flicks the switch. The generator lets out a low hum. Nothing dramatic, but inside each vehicle, every comms device, every GPS tracker, every encrypted tablet goes dark. She keys the radio again. 3 blind. Repeat, 3 blind. Then over the ridge, headlights flash. Once, twice, 3 times. Reggie's crew. No sirens, no guns, just presence. They pull in slow flatbeds, tow trucks, an old grain hauler. Blue-collar camouflage. Every driver a witness. Every one of them with a body cam streaming live to a mirror site hosted out of Vancouver. The man in the helmet hesitates. He looks up at the shed, looks at the trucks. He knows. This is not a secure kill. This is terrain they don't control. He radios back, gets no reply, and finally gestures. The SUVs reverse, slow, humiliated. They vanish into the dark. June doesn't gloat. She doesn't move. Not until they're gone. Then she exits the shed, walks to the perimeter, and kneels beside the relay unit. She lays her hand on the housing like it's a child. He who knows the terrain and uses it to his advantage shall fight on ground of his own choosing. This wasn't just a checkpoint. It was a warning. They're coming. But they'll never understand one thing. This isn't their land anymore. It answers to different laws, different people. And when it rises from the ground up. Step 11. The 9 situations. June hasn't slept in 3 days. She's been in 6 regions in 49 hours, by truck, by rail, by a decommissioned Coast Guard cutter now retrofitted for coastal supply drops. Her blood is mostly caffeine and adrenaline. Her throat's raw from too many hushed calls and unfiltered air. Her left hand won't stop shaking. But none of that matters, because she's here. And this is Death Ground. The feed goes live at 9:03 a.m. Pacific. Thousands tune in. More, probably. Across Pacifica, across the country, across borders that no longer mean what they used to. Not a speech, a declaration, a demand. The broadcast is simple. June stands on a bluff outside Eureka, wind shredding the edges of her jacket. Behind her, a new flag rises, just a single white line cutting a field of deep blue. Horizon and sky. This isn't a rebellion. This is the refusal to keep dying quietly. No script, no slogans, just the raw truth. Federal agencies are moving. A joint task force, DHS, National Guard, and contracted paramilitary units has staged equipment outside Sacramento, Portland, and Medford. They're not saying why. But the movement knows. Everyone does. They're going to try to break it. The plan is clear. Simultaneous raids on infrastructure hubs, followed by sweeping arrests under charges of sedition and terrorism. The excuse? Domestic stabilization. The reality? Crush the idea before it hardens into governance. The movement doesn't have tanks. It doesn't have jets. It has people, and people are scared. The governors of Oregon and Washington go silent. The mayor of San Francisco resigns. 3 of June's own coordinators vanish overnight. There are roads we walk to retreat, June says into the camera, and there are roads we burn because we finally understand there's no going back. She outlines what comes next. No offensive strikes. No retaliatory actions. No blood. But no cooperation, no surrender. If federal forces move, the people will sit everywhere. In the roads, in the ports, in the data centers, in the voting offices. Not as victims, as breaks. She calls it dead weight tactics, a human slowdown of the empire. Resistance through immobility. It's not glorious, it's not cinematic, it's effective and dangerous. Because this is the 9th and final situation, the one Sun Tzu feared and revered in equal measure. Desperate ground. No exits, no retreat, only forward or annihilation. In Redding, a food distribution node reroutes all inventory to community networks. In Tacoma, port workers flood the piers with idle cranes and sit in the rigging, daring anyone to move them. In Vancouver, thousands line the streets with mirrors reflecting the sunlight into federal drone optics until the sky is blinding. June watches the map light up, not with explosions, but with resolve. Every location holding the line is a beat in a single, massive drum, and it's getting louder. One of her leads messages her, "We can't take another hit. What if they don't blink?" She replies, "Then we show them what happens when a country stands still." It's not a bluff. It's not a slogan. It's a strategy drawn not in ink, but in the lives of the tired and ready. The empire will either yield or crack its own foundation trying to force compliance. June closes her eyes for just a second. She sees her son's face, not how he died, but how he looked as a child. Mouth stained with red popsicle. She breathes and waits for the hammer. Step 12. Attack by fire. The hammer doesn't fall at once. It lands in pieces. Press releases, arrests, internet blackouts, technical outages that only affect Pacifica-aligned zones. DHS issues a bulletin classifying the movement as an unauthorized para-political insurgency. Social media platforms throttle keywords. News anchors smirk into the camera and say they had a good run. But June isn't watching the news. She's underground, literally, 3 stories below a decommissioned postal depot in Sacramento. It smells like mold and solder. Around her, 6 techs work in silence, heads bent over cables and drive stacks. Tonight is the burn. She nods to Reggie, who inserts a final key and turns it. One confirmation beep. Then the screens flash blue, then black, then white. Every data cache from the last 18 months, leaked memos, financial records, hidden contracts, private messages, internal audits, is released simultaneously. Not dumped online. That's too easy to bury, too easy to discredit. They mail it. Every registered address in Pacifica, millions of homes, receives a plain envelope in 2 days. No return address, no stamp, just one sentence on the outside. They did this while you were sleeping. Inside, truth. Photos of politicians receiving private medical treatments while voting to slash public care. Emails from energy executives mocking climate victims. Surveillance footage of mercenaries rehearsing containment drills in immigrant detention centers. An invoice showing federal funds routed to a BlackRock shell company for surveillance balloons never built. Each region gets a different package, localized, personal. You don't read about the corruption of strangers. You read about your neighbor's water being sold, your cousin's medication being delayed, your city's housing market manipulated like a casino. It's not just data, it's fire. Within hours, the empire panics. They issue blanket denials. They claim forgeries. They arrest whistleblowers. But it's too late. Thousands gather in silence outside Capitol buildings, candlelight vigils for truth, not death. High schoolers walk out in mass, holding envelopes in the air. Veterans leave their medals on courthouse steps. The feds make a mistake. They raid a library in Tacoma, guns drawn, no warrant. They seize hard drives, detain volunteers, and drag a disabled IT worker across the sidewalk in zip ties. Someone films it. It goes everywhere. And that's when the first state representative declares allegiance to Pacifica. Not with fanfare, not with a press release. Just a quiet message, broadcast from a community radio station in Eugene. I do not recognize the authority of a government that poisons, lies, and calls it peace. My loyalty is with the people I serve, and they have already chosen. She signs off. Others follow. 3 days later, Hawaii's lieutenant governor flies to June's coastal hub on an unmarked plane. She arrives, alone. No press, no entourage. She asks one question: is there a place for us in what comes next? June doesn't answer right away. She stares out at the Pacific, wind biting her cheeks, hair like wire. Only if you're willing to burn the old map. They shake hands as smoke curls from 100 cities, truth rising, impossible to smother. Step 13. Use of spies. June's face is on every screen now. The Department of Justice issues a formal warrant for her arrest: seditious conspiracy, electronic interference, unauthorized transport of strategic goods, and distribution of classified materials. They stop short of treason. Treason would make her too big, too noble. They want her criminal, not mythic. Too late. She's already both. In public, they chase shadows, raiding safe houses, surveilling rail lines, detaining truckers. In private, they unravel. Agencies don't trust each other. Local officers refuse to carry out raids. Governors stall on enforcement. Judges leak sealed warrants. June doesn't hide. Not exactly. She moves. Today, she's in Vancouver. Tomorrow, in Ketchikan. Always with someone who says they owe her something. They bring food, silence, open doors. Not because she asked, because she made it matter. But even she doesn't know who's really keeping her alive. That honor belongs to the spy. She doesn't know his real name. She never asked. He was planted 2 years ago, before the first manifest was forged, before the first relay node blinked offline, back when June was still mapping supply chains and deciding whether she was brave or just angry. He was a mid-level systems analyst at a private intelligence firm contracted to Homeland Security. Smart, bored, underpaid, invisible. She met him once, at a Denny's. He ordered coffee and wrote an address on a napkin. Said, "If this ever goes sideways, you'll need what's there." Then he left. She didn't contact him again, never thanked him, never asked for more. But he kept sending. Key cards, surveillance bypass codes, internal memos rewritten to cover Pacifica's operations, lists of agency names that weren't supposed to exist. One of them tipped her off to the drone strike planned on a water hub in Baja. The strike never happened. The drone misfired. No one knows. No one but her. And now, maybe not even her. Because the napkin address? It's cold. She checks it after the Hawaii summit. A safe house in Portland. Inside, a laptop wired to a dead man's switch. She boots it. The screen flashes blue. "This will be my last transmission." His voice, calm, precise, tired. "They're on to me. Doesn't matter. What matters is what you do now. You have everything. They think the people need a flag. They don't. They need water, light, signal, and time. Keep giving them time." The screen cuts to black, then reboots. Hundreds of folders, terabytes of data, names, documents, the proof of everything, the plans to dismantle it, back doors into contracts, emergency protocols for federal asset withdrawal, agreements with international observers to honor regional autonomy under a human rights clause. He didn't just spy, he wrote the script for the end of the empire. And now it's in her hands. She forwards it to 7 leaders, one from each region. Then she deletes the original and walks outside. It's raining. Not hard, just enough to blur the edges of everything. June tilts her head back and lets it soak in. No gunfire, no bombs, just wet streets and a new future taking root beneath them. It is through the information of the spies that we are able to acquire foreknowledge. She knew what was coming, because someone believed in what could come next. The old world is collapsing, and Pacifica is already building the next one. Epilogue. After the fire. It's been 3 years. No official peace treaty was ever signed. No border wall was ever built. There's no embassy, no formal diplomatic language. And yet, Pacifica exists. 7 regions: California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Alaska, Baja California, and Hawaii function now as a confederated sovereign, bound not by constitution, but by covenant. Clean water, energy autonomy, healthcare without billing codes, education without police, food that stays local, and power that answers to people who can touch it. Some call it a breakaway state. Others call it a blueprint. The old United States still stands. Bitter, bruised, smaller. They don't speak of Pacifica on the news, but their citizens keep moving west, crossing the Rockies not for jobs, but for meaning. And as for June, she vanished the day the Pacifica Compact was ratified. No press conference, no monument. Just a handwritten note left in the folds of a fireproof jacket at an aid depot near the Salton Sea. I was never the point. The point was proving it could be done. There are rumors. Some say she lives in a quiet village up the coast of Haida Gwaii, walking dogs for elders who can't walk far. Others say she died crossing the border to deliver the last drive, her name erased so Pacifica could be born clean. But those are stories. And Pacifica isn't built on stories. It's built on infrastructure, on truth, on a woman in a truck who laid out a war plan so quiet the world didn't hear it until it was already over. Each year, on the day of the Declaration, no flags are raised. Instead, at sunset, across rooftops and mountaintops, across rail yards and fishing boats, people light a single lantern and let it float. Not in mourning, not in celebration. In recognition that sometimes to alter or abolish is not the collapse of something. It is the construction of something better. And sometimes the most radical act of war is simply refusing to disappear.